First contact gone wrong. High Admiral Zixtal of the Galactic Council's First Contact Fleet stood proudly on the bridge of the Celestial Harmony, his flagship's crystalline viewport offering a perfect view of the blue-green planet below. Earth, as its inhabitants called it, looked deceptively peaceful from orbit. Intelligence suggested a pre-FTL civilization, barely capable of reaching their own moon. Perfect candidates for uplifting into the galactic community. Status report, he commanded, his secondary breathing apparatus letting out a soft whistle. All ships in position, Admiral, his second in command, Commander Renla, responded. The humans appear to be detecting our presence. Their primitive scanning equipment is active, but their military forces remain at standard readiness. Zixtal's facial tentacles curled in satisfaction. Everything was proceeding according to protocol. The Council had performed this ceremony thousands of times across the galaxy. Arrive in force, demonstrate superior technology, and offer membership in the galactic community. Some species resisted initially, but all eventually accepted their place. Begin the approach sequence, he ordered. Activate the light show. The fleet of 12 ships began their choreographed descent, their hulls gleaming with carefully programmed bioluminescence. It was a display that had inspired awe in countless species. The Celestial Harmony led the formation, its kilometer-long hull casting rainbow patterns across the clouds below. Sir, Renla's voice carried an odd note. I'm detecting some unusual readings from the planet's surface. Elaborate. Energy signatures that weren't there a moment ago. They're appearing all over the planet, but our sensors can't classify them. Zixtal dismissed the concern with a wave of his primary appendage. Primitive technology often produces irregular readings. Proceed with. The bridge went dark. Every system, from life support to artificial gravity, shut down simultaneously. The backup systems remained silent. Through the viewport, Zixtal watched in horror as his entire fleet died, ships becoming silent, dark shapes against Earth's atmosphere. Emergency power, he shouted, but even his neural implant had gone dead. The ship was completely lifeless. A new light appeared on the bridge, a hologram, but not from their systems. A human figure materialized, dressed in what appeared to be casual clothing. The being smiled, and when it spoke, its words were perfectly translated. Welcome to Earth, Admiral Zixtal. We apologize for the dramatic entrance, but we felt it necessary to prevent any misunderstandings. Your ships are currently under our control. Don't worry. Life support is functioning on minimal power. We simply didn't want any unfortunate accidents during our first official meeting. Zixtal's tentacles writhed in shock. How? How do you know my name? How are you doing this? The human's smile widened. We've been watching the Council for quite some time, Admiral. Those primitive satellites you detected, decoys, the pre-FTL civilization you came to uplift, a facade. We learned long ago that it's better to be underestimated than feared. Impossible, Renla whispered. We would have detected. Your detection systems are excellent. Commander Renla, the human interrupted, for tracking what you know to look for. Humanity took a different path in our technological development. Why build massive ships when you can fold space? Why develop faster than light travel when you can step between dimensions? The human gestured, and the bridge systems slowly came back online. But now the sensors showed something new. Thousands of points of light surrounding the fleet, each one a ship that hadn't been there moments before. We've been ready for first contact for decades, the human continued. We just wanted to make sure we met the right sort of neighbors. The Council's practice of uplifting species, which often involves cultural erasure and economic subordination, concerned us. So we waited, and we watched, and we prepared. Zixtal felt his world shifting. Every assumption, every certainty about humanity's place in the galaxy crumbled. What? What do you want? To talk, Admiral. As equals. No shows of force, no demonstrations of superiority. just two civilizations meeting to discuss the future. The humans' expression became serious. But first, we needed to make something very clear. Earth is not a primitive world awaiting uplift. We are not your subjects or your students. The human paused, letting the message sink in. Now shall we begin our real first contact? Looking at the fleet of advanced ships surrounding his own, at the casual display of technology that shouldn't exist, Zixtel realized that the galaxy was about to change forever. And it had all started because they'd made the mistake of underestimating humanity. The hidden fleet. Grand Counselor Tekra's hologram flickered in the Celestial Harmony's command center, her crystalline features distorted by barely contained rage. You mean to tell me, Admiral Zixtel, that not only did these humans disable our entire fleet, but they've been watching us for decades? Zixtel's tentacles drooped in submission. Behind him, through the viewport, Earth's orbital defense grid shimmered into visibility, a vast network of satellites and stations that had remained perfectly hidden until now. The human ships still surrounded his fleet, their designs varying wildly from sleek predators to impossible geometric shapes that seemed to bend reality around them. The humans have surpassed our expectations, Counselor, he managed. Their technological development took a completely different path from any species we've encountered. They developed quantum manipulation before achieving standard FTL travel. The human representative, Sarah Chen, stood quietly to the side, a slight smile playing at her lips. Her casual demeanor belied the power she represented. She had simply walked through a hole in space to board the Celestial Harmony, as if the laws of physics were merely polite suggestions. Different path. Tekra's voice cracked like breaking glass. They've made a mockery of our entire understanding of technological progression. Every species we've encountered has followed the same basic path. FTL, energy weapons, shield technology. These humans, they're an aberration. We prefer the term innovative, Sarah interjected smoothly. Your council's assumption that all intelligent life would develop along the same technological path was presumptuous. Humanity chose to focus on manipulation of space-time and quantum mechanics before reaching for the stars. It gave us a unique perspective. Tekra's hologram turned to face the human. And what do you want now? To supplant the council? To dominate the galaxy? Sarah laughed, the sound echoing strangely through the ship's halls. Dominate? No. We've watched long enough to know that would be counterproductive. We want to trade, to share knowledge, to learn. But we also want the Council to understand that the galaxy is larger and stranger than you imagined. There are other paths to the stars, other ways of thinking that deserve respect. As if to emphasize her point, one of the human ships nearby seemed to fold in on itself, disappearing into a point of light, no larger than a pin, only to reappear instantly on the other side of the fleet. The display sent ripples of murmuring through the Celestial Harmony's crew. For example, Sarah continued, while you were perfecting faster-than-light travel, we were learning to step between dimensions. While you were developing energy weapons, we were mastering quantum entanglement on a planetary scale. Different approaches, different solutions, but equally valid. Zixtel watched as Tekra's hologram flickered again, this time from the Councilor's own agitation. The political implications were staggering. The Council's authority was based partly on their perceived technological superiority. But here was a species that had developed in complete secrecy, taking an entirely different path to the stars. You said you want to trade, Tekra said finally, her voice carefully controlled. What could you possibly want from us, given your level of advancement? Sarah's smile widened. Everything. Your art, your music, your stories, your different perspectives on the universe. Technology isn't everything, Counselor. Humanity has learned that lesson well. We've watched your people, your cultures, your civilizations. You have so much to offer beyond mere technical advancement. She gestured, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the command center. But this was unlike any hologram they'd seen before. It was as if a piece of space itself had been folded open, revealing the inner workings of the galaxy. Stars, planets, and ships moved in perfect detail, showing the complex dance of galactic civilization. "This is our gift to you," Sarah said, "a small demonstration of what cooperation between our peoples could achieve." This map shows real-time quantum entanglement data from across the galaxy. With it, you can track ships, monitor solar activity, even predict void storms days before they form. Even Tekra fell silent at the display. The strategic and scientific value of such technology was incalculable, and the humans were offering it freely, as a mere gesture of goodwill. "We have much to discuss," Sarah continued. "But first, I believe it's time for your fleet to stand down completely. Consider it a show of good faith. After all," her smile took on a hint of steel, "you're not going anywhere until we've reached an understanding." Looking at the human ships surrounding them, at the casual display of technology that bordered on magic, Zixtal knew she was right. The galaxy had changed forever, and the Council would have to change with it. The age of simple technological progression was over. Humanity had shown them that the universe was far stranger and far more wonderful than they had imagined. The Council's mistake. The emergency session of the Galactic Council erupted into chaos. The vast chamber, normally a model of decorum, rang with the angry voices of 100 species. Above them all, Supreme Counselor Tekra's voice cut through the din like a plasma beam. "Order. We will have order." The massive holographic display at the chamber's center showed the human fleet, or rather, what their sensors could detect of it. Most of their ships seemed to exist in a state of quantum uncertainty, simultaneously there and not there, mocking the very laws of physics the Council had built their civilization upon. First Speaker Karnax, representative of the militant Argosi Empire, rose from his seat. His metallic scales gleamed under the chamber's lights. "We cannot allow this insult to stand. These humans hide their capabilities, spy on us for decades, and now demand equal standing. The Council must respond with force." Sarah Chen, still wearing the same casual attire from the first contact, stood calmly at the center of the storm. Her hologram showed her aboard what the Council assumed was a human command center, though the strange geometric patterns shifting in the background made several Council members nauseous. "Force?" she asked, her voice carrying a note of genuine curiosity. "Haven't we already demonstrated the futility of that approach? We disabled your most advanced fleet without firing a shot." "A trick," Karnak snarled. "A single fleet caught off guard. The combined might of the Council would fare no better," Sarah interrupted. "But if you insist on a demonstration." The chamber's lights flickered. Every display, every hologram, every piece of technology suddenly shut down, plunging them into darkness. When the systems returned a moment later, the Council members found themselves staring at their own ships, their entire combined fleet, hundreds of vessels strong, floating powerless in space. "Your fleet has been temporarily disabled," Sarah announced. "Don't worry, life support remains functional. Consider this a practical lesson in the futility of force as a response to our presence." Supreme Counselor Tekra's crystalline features caught the light as she leaned forward. "You speak of peace while demonstrating your ability to wage war. How are we to trust your intentions?" "Trust." Sarah's hologram walked through the chamber as if she were physically present, stopping at various Council members. "If we wanted war, this conversation wouldn't be happening. We could have conquered the galaxy years ago. Instead, we watched, we learned, and we waited for the right moment to reveal ourselves." She gestured, and new holograms appeared. But these were different. They showed Council ships attacking pre-FTL civilizations, forcing them into compliance with standard technological development. Scenes of cultural erasure played out in perfect detail. "We waited because we needed to understand if the Council could accept a fundamental truth, that there is more than one path to the stars. That technological progress isn't a linear journey with only one destination." The images change, showing human history. Their first stumbling steps into quantum mechanics, their discovery of dimensional folding, their mastery of space-time itself. But alongside these technological achievements were scenes of art, music, literature, and philosophy. While you were forcing other species to follow your prescribed path of development, humanity took a different route. We learned to fold space before we built our first fusion drive. We mastered quantum entanglement before we reached Mars. And most importantly, we never lost sight of what makes us human: our creativity, our diversity, our ability to find new solutions to old problems. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Their entire understanding of technological progression, the very foundation of the Council's authority, was being challenged. But now, Sarah continued, we offer you a choice. Continue treating the galaxy as your personal garden to be pruned and shaped as you see fit. She paused, letting the threat hang unspoken in the air. Or join us in exploring what's really possible when different species, different technologies, different ways of thinking come together as equals. First speaker Karnax's metallic scales rattled with suppressed rage. And if we refuse? Sarah's smile was gentle but firm. Then you'll find your influence in the galaxy dramatically reduced. We've already begun sharing our technology with some of the species you've been supervising. They're quite excited about taking their own paths to the stars. The council chamber erupted again, but this time with a different kind of energy. Fear, yes, but also possibility. Some members were already calculating the advantages of alliance with humanity. Others saw their power slipping away. Supreme Counselor Tekra raised her crystalline hands for silence. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of history. It seems, representatives of Earth, that you have fundamentally changed the equation of galactic politics. The question is no longer whether we will accept your presence, but whether we can adapt to the new reality you represent. Sarah's hologram nodded. That's the first wise thing I've heard in this chamber today. Shall we begin discussing how to build this new reality together? As the council members looked at each other, at their powerless fleets, at the human ships that seemed to defy reality itself, they knew the age of simple answers was over. The galaxy had become a much larger, stranger, and more wonderful place than they had ever imagined. New horizons. The Galactic Academy of Sciences, once the proudest institution in council space, had become a humbling place for its senior researchers. Dr. Nixtera watched through the quantum viewing field as a group of human scientists casually demonstrated principles that contradicted centuries of established physics. You see, Dr. Emily Zhang explained, her hands moving through the holographic display as if conducting an orchestra. Space-time isn't rigid. It's more like a piece of fabric that can be folded, twisted, or even tied into knots. To demonstrate, she reached out and seemingly pinched the air itself. A point of light appeared, then expanded into a window showing a different part of the galaxy entirely. Through it, they could see the Andromeda Galaxy as clearly as if it were just beyond the Academy's walls. Impossible, one of the council scientists whispered, though no one believed that word anymore. 3 months had passed since humanity's revelation to the galaxy, and nothing had been the same since. Across council space, species that had been forced to follow the standard path of technological development were now exploring new directions, guided by human insights, but following their own intuition. The Meridian, a species of energy beings who had been pressured into adopting physical forms to interact with council technology, had already begun reverting to their natural state while maintaining their technological advancement. Their ships now existed in a quantum superposition, much like their bodies. The key, Emily continued, was realizing that technology doesn't have to follow a linear path. The Council assumed all species would progress from chemical rockets to fusion drives to FTL. But that's like assuming everyone must walk before they can swim. Different environments, different needs, different solutions. Dr. Nixtera's tentacles writhed with excitement despite her professional reservations. But how do you maintain stability? The energy requirements alone. That's where you're still thinking in old paradigms. Emily interrupted gently. Energy isn't just a resource to be consumed. It's a fundamental property of reality that can be negotiated with. To demonstrate, she pulled a small device from her pocket. Though device seemed too simple, a word for something that appeared to exist in 5 dimensions at once. As they watched, it unfolded into a complex array that began extracting energy directly from the quantum foam of space itself. Your civilization mastered the manipulation of matter and energy, Emily explained. We learned to manipulate the underlying fabric of reality. Different paths, different tools, but both valid approaches to understanding the universe. Across the room, a young council researcher suddenly jumped up, their scales flickering with excitement. I think I understand. If we combine our understanding of particle physics with your quantum manipulation techniques. Emily's face lit up. Exactly. This isn't about replacing your technology with ours. It's about finding new syntheses, new combinations that neither of our civilizations would have discovered alone. The Academy's main hall had become a buzzing hive of activity. Scientists from dozens of species were working together, combining different approaches to technology and physics in ways that would have been heretical just months ago. The rigid hierarchy of council science was giving way to something more organic, more creative. But not everyone was celebrating this new era. In a quiet corner, Dr. Nixtera noticed a group of senior council officials watching the proceedings with obvious concern. Their whispered conversations spoke of chaos, of the breakdown of order, of the dangers of unrestricted technological development. Emily noticed them too. She approached their corner, her quantum device folding itself back into impossibility. "You're afraid," she said simply. "You think we're destroying everything you've built." The eldest official, his crystalline form clouded with age, turned to her. "For millennia, we maintained order. Progress was controlled, predictable, safe. Now," he gestured at the chaos of collaboration around them, "now there is only chaos." Emily's smile was understanding but firm. "What you call chaos, we call creativity. Yes, it's messier than your carefully controlled progress. Yes, it's unpredictable. But look at what's already happening." She gestured to where a team of meridian energy beings were working with solid-state council engineers, combining their radically different approaches to create something entirely new. Nearby, a group of organic chemists were learning how to fold molecular structures through quantum dimensions, creating materials that shouldn't exist. "This isn't chaos," Emily continued. "This is evolution. The galaxy isn't just expanding technologically, it's expanding philosophically. Every species is discovering that their natural intuitions about the universe have value, that their unique perspectives offer insights no one else could have provided." Dr. Nixtera's research pad was filling with notes faster than her tentacles could type. The implications were staggering. If every species could develop technology that matched their natural intuitions about the universe, rather than following the Council's prescribed path. "The real question," Emily said, addressing the entire hall now, "isn't whether this change is dangerous. Change is always dangerous. The question is whether the rewards outweigh the risks. And from humanity's perspective, the greatest risk would be continuing to limit the galaxy's potential out of fear." The hall fell silent as her words sank in. Through the quantum viewing field, they could see ships of designs that would have been impossible 3 months ago, moving through space in ways that defied conventional physics. But more importantly, they could see their own future, unlimited by dogma, unrestricted by artificial constraints, ready to explore the true wonders of the universe. The age of controlled progress was over. The age of infinite possibility had begun. A new dawn. 1 year after humanity's revelation to the galaxy, the former council chamber had been transformed. Where once stood rigid rows of seats arranged by political hierarchy, now a fluid quantum shifting space, adapted to each species' natural form of existence. Meridian energy beings floated alongside crystalline Tekra, while various organic species occupied everything from traditional chairs to gravity wells. Supreme Counselor Tekra, now serving as just one of many voices in the newly formed Galactic Concordat, watched as the latest reports streamed in through quantum-linked displays. Each update seemed to further validate humanity's approach, even as it challenged everything she had once believed in. The hive mind of Delta Pavonis reports successful integration of quantum consciousness technology, and aid announced. Their collective intelligence now spans 3 star systems without loss of cohesion. The Aquarian Federation has adapted human space-folding principles to create stable wormholes underwater. Another voice called out. Their civilization is expanding through the galaxy's oceanic worlds at an unprecedented rate. Even the militant Argosi, once the strongest supporters of council dominance, had found their own path. Their natural affinity for metallic forms had led them to develop living ships that existed as extensions of their consciousness, giving them a unique advantage in space exploration. Sarah Chen, now serving as humanity's primary representative to the Concordat, stood at the center of the chamber. The casual clothing she'd worn during first contact had become something of a diplomatic fashion, with representatives of various species adopting their own versions of comfortable, practical attire over formal regalia. 1 year, she began, her voice carrying naturally through the quantum-enhanced acoustics. 1 year since we revealed ourselves to the galaxy. Some of you predicted chaos. Others feared the collapse of galactic civilization. Instead, she gestured, and the chamber's quantum field activated, surrounding them with a real-time display of the galaxy. Thousands of lights sparkled, each representing a civilization developing along its own unique path. Lines of communication and commerce connected them in an ever-growing web of cooperation and exchange. Instead, we have seen an explosion of creativity and innovation unlike anything in galactic history. Every species is finding its own way to the stars, developing technology that matches their natural intuitions and biological imperatives. The display zoomed in on specific examples. The crystalline Tekra had adapted quantum folding to enhance their natural computational abilities, turning entire crystal cities into living computers. The gaseous Zephyrs had developed ways to exist simultaneously across multiple wind currents of different planets, creating a civilization that literally rode the solar winds. But more importantly, Sarah continued, we've learned from each other. Humanity's methods weren't perfect, just different. Your understanding of traditional physics has helped us refine our quantum technologies. Your experience in galactic governance, despite its flaws, has provided valuable lessons in managing diverse civilizations. A murmur of agreement rippled through the chamber. Even the most conservative members of the former council had to admit that the galaxy had not collapsed into chaos as they'd feared. Instead, it had blossomed into something far more complex and beautiful than their rigid system had allowed. There have been challenges, Sarah acknowledged. Not every experiment has succeeded. Not every civilization has found its path immediately. But the freedom to fail, to learn, to adapt, this has proven more valuable than any amount of controlled progress. The display shifted again, showing the frontier regions where new civilizations were being contacted. But unlike the old council's approach of forced conformity, these encounters now focused on helping each species discover their own unique path to advancement. And now, Sarah said, we face our greatest challenge and opportunity. The quantum sensors we've distributed throughout the galaxy have detected signs of civilizations in other galaxies, civilizations that may have taken paths we haven't even imagined. The chamber erupted in excited discussion. The idea of intergalactic contact would have seemed impossible a year ago. Now it felt like the natural next step. Tekra rose from her crystalline seat, her form refracting light in complex patterns that conveyed both emotion and data. You knew about this possibility when you first contacted us, didn't you? You were preparing us not just for change within our galaxy, but for something much larger. Sarah's smile was both confirmation and invitation. The universe is far stranger and more wonderful than any single species can imagine. But together, each following our own paths while learning from each other's journeys, there's no limit to what we might discover. The quantum display expanded one final time, showing not just their galaxy, but the entire local group of galaxies. Somewhere out there, other civilizations were following their own paths to the stars. Some might have mastered physics humans had never imagined. Others might have found ways to transcend physical reality entirely. This, Sarah concluded, is humanity's true gift to the galaxy. Not our technology, not our methods, but the understanding that there are infinite paths to the future. We only have to be brave enough to follow them. As the representatives of 1,000 worlds looked out at the infinite possibilities before them, they understood at last what humanity had known all along. The greatest adventure wasn't in reaching the stars, but in discovering all the different ways to get there. The galaxy had changed forever, and it was only the beginning.